get it from the intellect reservoir. Cosmic surfing, these two sons of God didn't come from virgins. Ether makes up these gods. We rode light angles to the earth plane. Again trapped in skin, but a different name. Monads, been here since Ruth and Moabs. Thought you killed me when Drew and Marcus got toe tagged. That's why I'm here with the Grand Chairman of Fear. Truth make you think critical like severe. Doing the God things, I make ancients appear. And all I'm hearing is knocking while I'm watching a seer. Ancient rituals and sound healing notes through Pro Tools. Eye-to-eye transfers knowledge, you need no schools. Waking up the masses, music is class and stage. Most fail cause they look like the flying shades. Following demons possess Kanye's and Lil Wayne's. Expecting a hippie with a cross and a Greek name. In the melanin calls me D&V, the link up with no cheese. Orisha's in me, I'm not what you don't see. I'm not one of those armchair revolutionaries. Allah's in me, sick and tired of being sick and tired. But that's just where we get our strength, man. The Christ is in me. I'm not a hustler, pimp, gangster, wankster, but trust me, they all in me.
I got it when the moon shifted the tomb in the melanated womb. Sipping milk in the honeydew and triple black, boom, touchdown. Traveling on planet Earth where we crush clowns. While I'm managing this curse and preparing the elixir that turns copycats into kitty litter. These poor pussies pretending to be misters. I cannot sin, but I can be very sinister. My limitations are limited as I do a lap around the galaxy. Had to gather light and rally back and fuck the fallacy. And cause of that, I got labeled the antagonist. And it didn't help that I cuss and bun cannabis and bun candles and wear symbols of Orishas. And I put a hex on the heads of 7 preachers with one trailer spit aimed at the pulpit. Crushed a crucifix, a whole tabernacle backflip. I'm not Catholic, but if I choose my bare resonance, you may just catch a glimpse of Lucifer's semblance. Up and down Jacob's ladder with my melanin, the vessel of no fear none. You can find the devil in.
God's in me, I say that so serious. Turn a nigga to a god, show you I'm serious. Got him proclaiming, name changing and facing with no guilt or fear. All these clansmen masons, we stand on squares, circumscribe our own circumference. Goddess Lakshmi bless me with abundance of prosperity. I speak with clarity, not to confuse. Put Moorish in front everything from Christian to Jews. I'm the anchor, so I don't listen to news on some snail type vibrations making me snooze. Calling a parker to call down our UFO crews. Like Yahweh or Dogon shamans, we call on Ra-Amen. For sun ritual, spiritual, I'm physically trapped. Rewind, playback, and get your pineal tap. Like Gregory Hines, when I'm spitting the rhymes. A&Rs want me to blow, but all rights reserved when we sign. In the melanin calls me D&V, the link up with no cheese. Orisha's in me, I'm not what you don't see. I'm not one of those armchair revolutionaries. Allah's in me, sick and tired of being sick and tired. But that's just where we get our strength, man. The Christ is in me. I'm not a hustler, pimp, gangster, wankster, but trust me, they all in me.
Alright, so let's pour the libations. Omagumu, Owalensu, Shumala, Otija, Chiaja, Cheola, Alcala, Lokeo, Kakomo, Lalila. I need some halala shades. Issa, Manu, Noku, Mana, Imatu, Tuti, Juba, Joba, Agati, Kasimbo, Nisaba, Isala, Abiru Kaya, Pazuzu, Zuzma, Numaresh, Avalonia, Aya, Ayo, Yamaresh, Ragma, Notoyo, Manu, Neptu, Nisu, Yahalo,
Salam Moors. Just remember it's Tuesday. So here we are. Got the questions, put it in the chat. All you new people, all you new Moors just coming into this, put your questions in the chat. Any questions, doesn't matter. We don't dodge subject matter. Honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali is the man. They never told you about him, but he's the man. Because he brought Rome to dust, ground Rome to powder. But they rebuilt again because of your nigger leaders sold you out that you keep supporting. You don't want to learn. You don't want to learn. You want to keep playing the same games over and over again. Keep suffering and don't get why that's happening. If you got questions, put them in the chat in all caps. Don't be shy. There's no way you don't have questions. The amount of questions we had when we just started coming at this, and we didn't even have go online and Google and keywords or whatever. You gotta go library. It was real studying. People looking at you crazy. 500 books around you. Like, who's this guy? Hi, sir. What are you in school for? Like, what are you studying? Studying? School? What school? I just learned about my birthrights. Found out that I'm a Moor. Reference library. Downtown Toronto. Reference library. Go up at the library. Ask the lady, hey, you got the books on the Moors? Huh? The Moors. You have any books on the Moors? Could you spell that? Alright, this is like 09. Moors. Oh, the Moors. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. I'll put up in the computer or whatever. And then she brought me to the little section. To, from here to here is all the books that you're going to get. You know what I mean? So just, one thing we do when we go to the library is first thing, every book, bam, check the index. There's Moors in here. And then depending on how big the section is of Moors, that's the book that I would pick. Ended up with maybe like 10 books or something. I'm just sitting there. There's books around. Books just around me. And this feel like Iranian or something like that. It's like, yo, what are you studying? Studying about my history. Found out that I'm a Moor. You mean the Moors in? And then he starts going off. Pulled up a chair. Going off. I don't even know what he's talking about. But he was excited. That was a thing that made me say, wow, this is something that people know about. Like, I thought I came with some new wealth of something. No, this is everybody knows about this. Right? Yeah. You can't even go to a library now, but if you know more, Moors will be, it's going to be the spot, just like the Renaissance. You're going to have to go check the Moors. Because you can't even go to the library. Forget mask. No more library. All libraries digital, which is why they all went digital, where they started throwing out books and stuff like that. Moors going nuts, like, what? What are you guys doing? What? Let me see, where's the bin? Let me get the bin that you guys stored all these books in. Talk about you're going digital. Alright, let me get those books right there. All of them free? Nothing? You just give me these 5 boxes of books, just free. Alright, cool. No problem. There's probably like 20 boxes. Moore's car was scraping, muffler scraping. Getting back. Because the library's throwing out books. Right. Okay. So one of the questions that came up was trust. So again, we're not gonna assume some guy who has some trust package is gonna sell you. He knows what a trust is. We're not trusting that guy. We're definitely not trusting the guy with the shades on, lecturing and all that stuff. We're not trusting that guy. Because trust is a serious thing. People talking about trust and all that. But if Moors killed the prophet, the last thing on my mind is some trust. I don't trust none of these people. So I ain't doing any trust for them or with them. Right? Trust. Now, this is what trust is. This is why I don't get how people get caught with packages or whatever like that, and the trust programs and all this type of stuff, and the guy's gonna teach you about the trust and all this 5,000 when you gotta look it up in the damn dictionary. Trust, in general, a right of property, real or personal, held by one party for the benefit of another. You hear anything about commerce in there? You hear anything about how these people are talking about trust when they mention trust? You got trust class and all this stuff to try to teach you something that is basic. Trust is a right to property, held by one for the benefit of another. So when people say, oh yeah, you know what I mean, I got my, and then I want to put it in the trust because, you know, the trust is going to make sure that the European doesn't get to my stuff because then, and then it's my stuff that I paid for it with the gold and the silver, so it's mine, and you know what they're talking about. And anybody talking like that is some of the most selfish, greedy people on the planet. So they're not even looking to pass it down to the other, the benefit of the other, and they didn't even bring it up. How come nobody that's talking this trust stuff is bringing up, well, who's the stuff going to? Like, you keep telling me about put this thing in a trust, there's this document that you got, so it's perfect for the trust. Okay, but like, what does that have to do with who's getting the stuff in the trust? Because if I put it in the trust, it's gone. It's not yours anymore. If you put it in the trust, don't be using it and stuff like that, thinking that you did that correctly. The only way that works is by a body politic creating the trust. If the individual creates the trust is pretty much a fraud. Unless everything in it is going to a beneficiary. Which you can't be the beneficiary if you're the one that's putting it in. But that class is probably going to run about 3 hours or whatever. And then you're going to think you got something. Because now you know how to create the trust so that you can put miss the whole point. And then after you get played, when the trust stuff that you tried doesn't work, because you can't do it as an individual, it has to be a body politic. You can't do it as an individual. Why would you do it as an individual? You don't got enough collateral as one more. You need about 15 other more stuff to have some collateral. But everybody wants to play the sell you something game instead of just looking up the stuff in the dictionary. A confidence reposed in one person who is termed trustee for the benefit of another who is called the cestui trust, respecting property which is held by the trustee for the benefit of the cestui trust. So the trustee, as soon as you think, I'm going to claim the whatever, put it in the trust, Now you can't use it because you're admittingly a trustee. So don't go try to benefit off it now, because you're going to play yourself. Because you cannot. It's a slippery slope playing trustee and beneficiary. In the same thing that your hands are the only hands in it, and you think that nobody's looking at that? You think that you're just going to file this paper called a trust or whatever, have these different names on it and all this stuff and properties and whatever like that, right? More than likely, right? The trust is going to be set up with insignia on it from somebody who they're not even part of the nation, because they're not showing that they are. They got marked fezzes and all this stuff, and you're thinking that they're doing something. And then they have a course where you're going to pay for them to teach you about something that you could get a law dictionary and just read it for yourself. That means that they're pretending to be lawyers. If they're pretending to be lawyers, then they're officers of the court. And if they're officers of the court, then they're a fraud. So why are you even messing with them? So I would say go get the law dictionary. Because the only way that you're going to create a trust is if you have children and you're giving everything to them. Or if you have a body politic and you want to protect the members' property, there'll be a collective trust that all the members put into the trust for the benefit of the whole. And this is where it comes in that we're talking about the sovereignty, and then you have the elected representatives or whatever who are going to be the trustees. And you're going to call them Grand Sheik and Grand Governor and Grand this and that, because they're supposed to be administering the affairs on your behalf. And you, as the beneficiary, if you really know what's up, you know that it's about your heirs. It ain't even about you having it. It's so they have something. That's why Europeans got the upper hand on us, because every European put out $1 million life insurance plan. That their heirs are going to get $1 million if something happens to them. It's not some benefit off slavery like that. It's they were dealing in trusts. They're not in their own land. They don't got no common law here. Europeans don't have common law anything in the Americas, because this is not their land, so they don't have common law like that. But if they can get you to give up your sovereignty, now they use it, not in its full capacity, in the capacity enough for them to create trusts. They're claiming that they're the government. You're going with it, thinking that they supersede you. You register your property with them. They take it and put it in a trust. Mortgage, whatever. All that stuff is in trust for them to benefit. But it's also collateral. And because they're dealing with a debt system that they created, they can make their little back finance printing whatever they got to print. But fraud eventually is going to implode. And because they control the current, they now control the other level of currency, which is the crypto. Right? When you're looking, all right, that was right. So We'll get to that next question. But going back to trust. Any arrangement whereby property is transferred with intention that it be administered by a trustee for another's benefit. A fiduciary relation with respect to property, subjecting person by whom the property is held to equitable duties to deal with the property for the benefit of another person, which arises as a result of a manifestation of an intention to create it. An obligation on a person arising out of confidence reposed to him to apply property faithfully and accordingly, such confidence as being in nature of deposition by which proprietor transfers to another property or subject entrusted, not that it should remain with him, but that it should be applied to certain uses on the behoof of a third party. A trust can be created for any purpose which is not illegal, and that which is not against public policy. Essential elements of trust are designated beneficiary and trustee, found sufficiently identified to enable title to pass to trustee, and actually deliver to trustee with intention of passing the title. And then remember, for the benefit of another, who is called a sestiki trust. Sestiki trust, the person for whose benefit a trust is created, or who is to enjoy the income or the avails of it. Right? Remember, this is just dictionary. We're not going into some trust book from the whatever. So this is just a dictionary. And this stuff is figured out. But again, people have it in their mind that they think they know what something is without looking it up. And then that's how the damage happens. Because one, if the trust is not in free national name, it's void. So if you use the Shah name or the Shah names anywhere involved with that, because they told you that, you can claim that because that's yours, because the birth certificate is whatever like that, and you're going on trust from that perspective, everything's void. Throw in the towel. Because they relayed to you what it was about. Just like people who are going to talk about the same trust people and all that, right? The same trust people and all that stuff is going to come, and then they're going to throw grantor in there. And they're going to make you think that there's some other parties that are involved or whatever like that. When the real deal is that it's between trustee and beneficiary. The one who creates it and the one who's benefiting. Anybody talking about anybody else is trying to sell you something. And the trustee has a fiduciary obligation to the beneficiary to make sure that they protect the stuff that was entrusted to them. Right? So, trust, you first have to be someone trustworthy in order to create a trust. There's no trust in you, forget trust. Trust is not even where you're supposed to be. Pick up your Quran or something. Forget about trust. If you just told the child services people about, you know what I mean, the baby father isn't doing the whatever like that, and then you're talking about create a trust or something like that, you're tripping. There's no trust in you. So you have to know what words mean, especially if you're talking law. And trust is law. And if you're telling me about let's do a trust for the nation of Moors and all this, and you even have law dictionary, but you want to create a trust, please stop everything that you're doing, everything that you've been doing. Stop immediately. Because you're about to get played or play yourself. All right. If anything more on that, you could. But like we say, get your dictionaries so you could look up words so you know what they mean, so people can't play you. Just watch. Look how they talk. You'll see them talk. Grantor, and throw little stuff in there. Don't let them throw stuff in there with you. Law is specific. Law is not vague. Law is not open to interpretation. Law is what it is. Right? Now, someone also brought up treaties. So again, look it up. Just see what this is. Treaty, international law, a compact made between two or more independent nations with a view to the public welfare. An agreement, league, or contract between two or more nations or sovereigns, formally signed by commissioners, properly authorized, and solemnly ratified by the several sovereigns or the supreme power of each state. A treaty is not only a law, but also a contract between two nations, and must, if possible, be so construed as to give full force and effect to all its parts. And then under that, treaty of peace, an agreement or contract made by belligerent powers in which they agree to lay down their arms, and by which they stipulate the conditions of peace and regulate the manner in which it is to be restored and supported. So the question was, are there any treaties that we should look up? There's not a treaty that you really shouldn't look up, to be honest with you. Now you can go to Moors and Masonry, and there's a bunch of treaties in there. One of the treaties you want to look up is any quote-unquote Indian treaties with Europeans. When the Europeans came over here, who they did treaties with, so you could know who on that side sold you out. Because they weren't even really supposed to be doing treaties like that. Because they know that their Native American history told them about these foreigners. It wasn't some secret over here. It was known over here that the great white devil was gonna come here. The pale man. So all those. And it's not read, you know what I mean? It's just go through them. Just, you know what I mean? If you're looking at the islands, whatever treaties in the islands, what treaties the British did with the indigenous people, what treaties the French did with the indigenous people, what treaties did the Dutch do with the indigenous people, because you'll realize in studying treaties, you realize the importance of contracts, and then you'll look at anything that you sign with anybody a whole different way. Especially if it's talking about in some terms and conditions in the one case, and you know what I mean, you can't even read the stuff that they're telling you about. You got 500 pages or whatever, but they're telling you sign here and all that. You look at stuff totally different. You know, so don't look at studying the treaties from the perspective of there's some type of historical whatever that you're gonna get out of it like that. Look at it as that's the standard of how your engagement with people is supposed to be. Right? Like certain situations, you know, as soon as you get the floppy handshake, that it's not, you weren't doing business with these people. Right? But in studying the treaties and just going through them, just, you know what I mean, you don't have to spend 500 hours studying treaties, right? But you're looking at you're looking at how is it that these Europeans were allowed to violate this? Because remember, they're foreigner here, so they have to have something with someone in order to be here. Which on the governmental side of it is why when Moors say ask for delegation of authority order from people, where's your treaty? Where's your contract? Because you have to have something to even be able to have this building. To be able to say that you're the judge of whatever, you should have something. I can't just go off the top that you are who you say you are. And you're supposed to be open to just give that to me. It's not supposed to be some stuff that I gotta demand or beg for. And as soon as they can't prove it, you already know that they probably don't have a treaty, which means that they're in violation of something, because something would have to be there for them to have the power to exist. Because remember, we're talking about on our side, right? We're talking about being in the Americas. Because the Americas have different sovereign states here. It's not like Europeans are dealing with anybody. They're dealing with specific people, the Aboriginal and Indigenous people. So if they're a foreigner, then what the Aboriginal and Indigenous people say is really what's supposed to be going on. But then if they're pretending that they don't know the language and then they're going to write stuff different and all that stuff, that changes the jurisdiction, which gives up the sovereignty, which is how we lost the birthright. Because they started classifying in ways that we weren't identified. Like, for example, you look at the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and it's talking about Moors in it. You look at the Treaty of Tordesillas and it's talking about places being called something that it's not even called. That's not even the name of it. What do you mean? How are you doing a treaty? How is there a treaty saying, yeah, we're going to go over there and claim, your house is 555, Pine Road. Well, yeah, we're going to go over there and claim, 555 Spanish Road, and that's going to be our jurisdiction. And they come in there and they say, yeah, this is now Spanish Road or whatever like that. So anybody in here, you need to get out. If you don't get out, we're just going to murder you and take your stuff anyways. And now it's Spanish Road. And everybody's going with it's that. When that was a violation of the treaty. Because they weren't supposed to be going in there playing like they don't know what this is, because they have the maps. Because they just went through the Inquisition against the Moors. I remember, we're talking 1492. They just went through the Inquisition, got all the information, so they know certain things. This is why they burned all the books and stuff like that, because they wanted to create a different history. Remember, all this is dealing with contracts and treaties. Because they couldn't do that without a contract. They couldn't get as far as they got without having some type of contract that gave them a certain amount of jurisdiction. Remember, the game is everybody knows who we are except ourselves. Right. So, when you're looking into treaties, right, look at it from the perspective of understanding contracts. So if you're studying, for example, if you're studying treaties, then you should have law dictionary there. If you're studying treaties, you should have contract law dictionaries. Because there's certain language that's going to be spoken about that are directly geared to this contract or this arrangement. That's why they put it in big letters. It's a treaty. Because it's not small stuff if you say treaty. Right? But ultimately the power of the treaty is the sovereign who signed it, who initiated the treaty. Right? And once it's the sovereign initiating it, then it is what it is. As far as that jurisdiction of England, UK, Britain, France, anywhere that Asiatics are that they would say is Europe, just look for the Moorish history there. Guaranteed it's there. In your face. In your face to the point where a lot of stuff is missed because we weren't looking for Moors. We were looking for black whatever. When we're doing research, we're looking for the black whatever. That's a fiction. The African whatever, that's a fiction. That's not a reality. But the Moorish history, from we know, like you got J. Rogers, Nature Knows No Color Line. That one. The earlier edition books are always best. So if you get to a library, the law section of the library, they'll have contract law books there, and then that'll be your reference. The older books would be better, right? But there's no real specific contract law books. You know what I mean? Just books on contract law. But the earlier versions would be better. You know, it would deal with more of the origin of contracting, negotiating. You know, how to engage each other in these different realms, whether it's business or whatever, because everything is geared around contracts. Now, what does Africa mean? When was the land called Africa? What era or time period did it change from Asia Nor Asia soared to Africa. Well, Africa was from Scipio Africanus, whatever year that was, Scipio Africanus, and prior to that, all of that was Mauritania. And Mauritania has the MAUR in it. Right. The Asia North and Asia South, that's ancient, because people know about the Oriental and the Occidental and the Asiatic, and how the Asiatic is directly related to Asia. But Asia, in saying Asia with Asiatic, that includes the African continent, because we know that that's not Africa, that's Alkebulan. Only the north of it was called Africa, but that's really Alkebulan, or it's really Asia. That's why Asians are Moors. That's why Chinese and whoever have such a superior claim in African countries. Then Africans are mad as if Chinese aren't African. They got claimed there. Because it's Asia. For sure the transfer would have happened. The transfer would have happened from the colonization, as far as the Asia and Africa being Asia, and then the time frame of that. Like, I don't know what the time frame is, but the fact they're still connected, and the world was Asia once as well, that's also a part of it. And then that also ties in with the Bering Strait and all that ice bridge that you could come from over there, which, you know, would be, if they migrated that way, then crossing the Bering Strait, going west from there or going east from there, Asia through Russia, all that, going into, you know, that's Asiatics, not Asians like slanty eye people, but Asiatics. Like the Asians are later. But it's just piecing it all together, because they made us scattered with everything. You know what I mean? And we just have to use our own volition, use our sovereignty. Right? Right, exactly. You know, and then keep in mind that even though we're saying Tunisia and Algeria and Libya and whatever, also throw Egypt in there, because that's North Africa too, which is part of why the whole, you know what I mean, Middle East or whatever, to take the attention away from Egypt being North Africa as well. So when they say the Moors are from North Africa, you think they don't mean Egypt too? And then whatever came with Egypt as far as the history that we know, and then they try to separate it as its own school of thought. No, it's not. That's North African history. And the Moors are North African. Don't let any Egyptologist try to play like some Kemet, Nubia, or whatever. No, all that is the same stuff. Kush, that's all Canaanites and all that. Nubia, all of that. Because remember, even the Moorish PhD, Dr. Ben, told them African Moors, Asian Moors, and Arab Moors is who ruled the world. Anywhere you went, that's what you found. Asian Moors, African Moors, and Arab Moors. All of them are Moors though, right? Okay. And then that side of it, that Egypt being over here. And not the more from the perspective of a parallel. Because it was all one landmass. So, to who these colonies of Atlantis were touching over there. It wasn't, you know what I mean? When Atlantis was there, now look how close it is. Once you put Atlantis in. So there's some places from the islands where you can see Africa across the Atlantic. And try to put your questions in all caps so we don't get confused with the thing moving. Is there a difference between Moorish American and indigenous Moor? Nope, same people. The only difference is people playing around like one is different than the other so they can get people to join their whatever they created yesterday, opposed to just being the Moorish nation. Right? The whole separation thing is because people just don't want to be the Moorish nation. And then they're looking at Moors like we're debating with people. We're not debating with people. We know what it is. We're Moors. That's what it is. Anything else is a fiction. Moors can't be a fiction because it's 700 years of history of just that ruling the world. There's no indigenous history of no indigenous people ruling the world other than the Moors. That's why we use the example of the friars coming over here and seeing the Moors over here and saying, these Moors. What do you mean these Moors over here? I thought it was the indigenous people over here. Right? It's not it's not like it's not a separation. It's not a separation. Right? We're one people. We're Moors, broken down into different those schools of thought or tribal whatever they want to talk about. Fine. But like we tell everybody, if you're really game for some unity, just put Moors on what you're calling yourself. You want to be black? Fine. Put Moors on it. Don't just say black. Say black Moors. Don't just say chematologists. Say Moorish chematologists. Say the Hebrew Israelites. Say Moorish Israelites. Hebrew Moorish Israelites. Moorish Rastafarians. Just put Moorish on it. We'll have unity and then we can get some stuff done. But now they don't want to do that. Everybody wants to be the man and not give honors to the prophet who already brought the salvation for our people. All right. Any other questions? Throw them in the chat. Haitian woman told me Africa is really so close. Yeah, it might only take 3 hours. I mean, it's not like you're the pilot, so they could be going in circles or whatever, wasting time. Can't give it up that it's only 3 hours away. I mean, it's 24 hours to drive from here to Florida, so it's 3 hours across the Atlantic, then something's going on. Something's definitely going on. 3 hours across the Atlantic, but it's 5 hours from here to the islands or whatever. I don't know about all that. That's a lot. That's a stretch. 3 hours. 3 hours across the Atlantic. Yeah, I've been out there. It might be Truman Show. There might be no Atlantic out there. There's cardboard. Flying over cardboard. Are we more American or Moorish American? Looking at the etymology of Ish son, we should say more or Moorish. But when you look up more American, Moorish American, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Just like the indigenous Moor or the Moorish American. Same stuff. Moors. Moors. Right? If we're gonna say nationality, you could say Moroccan, but Moorish American is what Noble Drew Ali told us the nationality is. With the Moorish, it means pertaining to the Moors. It's not more with a suffix ish. No, it's Moorish. That's a word. It means pertaining to the Moors. So Moorish is pertaining to the Moors and America, because pertaining to the Moors in America. So Moorish. More American is because people feel funny, just like what you're saying with the Moorish. So they feel funny with the ish, so they don't want to put the ish, so they say more American, which is the same thing, saying Moorish American, pertaining to the Moors in America. You know, but again, people want to make stuff advanced and all that, and it's not that crazy. It's real simple. You know, more American or Moorish American doesn't matter. You're saying the same thing. Indigenous, you're saying more. You're just not putting more on it, and that's when you get in trouble, when you don't put more on it. The people got so far that they still say, you know, they're Indian or whatever, even though they know that that's wrong. You know, even though they know it's wrong, they still have the card from the European that says they're Indian. You know? Well, if we look at when the U.S. locked down and not look at, it's been locked down since about 33. We already know what they do to people who don't have nationalities. Because everybody who has nationality, they got their reparations already. And they're good right now. And the only people who didn't get their reparations yet are the Negro, black, colored people playing games. That they don't want a nationality. But then they want reparations and they want this and they want that, but they don't want a nationality. In order to get the things that they're claiming that the Europeans should be giving them, because all the abuses that they got. But they don't want it, so, you know, Moors get their little piece whenever they can get it, because we know the power of the birthright. You know, until everybody gets on it, it's not really going to be power, but the little bit of power that it is good for me. I'm good with this amount. I'm good. You know what I mean? It could keep getting worse out there and it be just like this, I'm straight. I ain't even worried. Because I know that stuff has absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't know what anybody's talking about. I don't even watch the news. So, you know what I mean? When they say lockdown and stuff like that, in my research, this place has been locked down since 33. know, they didn't just lock down yesterday because we saw some COVID. It's been locked down. You know, but knowing what your nationality is going to keep you out their jurisdiction. You know. Well, the only record that what is the proper way to declare nationality on the record? So there used to be the way of going and filing your papers at the county recorder's office, and then they file it, and then now it's on the record. And now you just go be yourself because it's on the record. But since the county recorders got sold out or whatever and the cities took over, now you have to put them on notice yourself. It's not some record that you're going to put something on and then anybody could go see it and then they're going to... No, at this point, where it's at right now, with all this corruption going on, you're pretty much going to have to get your paperwork and stuff like that prepared. You know, just paperwork already out there. Get it witnessed, get it sealed, make copies of it, and you're putting on notice who needs to know about your declaration of your nationality. They say notice to agent is notice to principal, but I don't trust any of these people. So I put everybody who needs to know on notice. In certain instances, they might not even get notice because of, you know, certain obligation that I might have with them, that I just reserve my rights when I'm dealing with them. But in reserving my rights, I have a right to a nationality. So if anything comes up or whatever, nationality is getting put on the table. I mean, when you look at it, like obviously it's not like a basketball, it's like a wall, right? There's water on it and all that, right? The flat part, it's kind of sketchy because what's under it and all that. You know, I mean, if it's flat, then something's under it. Then what's under it? And if anybody hasn't been there to go check and answer the question of what the hell's under it, then it's useless having the conversation because it doesn't matter. People are still going to get murdered in the street whether this is flat or a cube or whatever. And from what we're taught, globe, we already know it's not a globe because it's not a circle like that. You know, there's things between the soil and the dark stuff called the universe. So, you know, we wouldn't get into those conversations about what shape is Earth and all that. I know I'm on it, and I know we got work to do because our people are nuts out here. We're getting the countdown. Peace and love to all the Moors. Anything else, send it in the DM. Honors to all the mothers. Honors to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Islam to all.